welcome to Sunny Irabor Live. And today we're having a very special dedication to the special children in need, children with special needs. And sometimes, especially for Christians, this is the Lenten season, the season where you really have to atone for your sins, look back, and look at life differently. Look at your fellow man. Try to dedicate a period of time to be nice to your fellow human being, irrespective of who that person is. But the truth is, there are many more Christians who strongly believe that every day is for dedication to the goodness of man to man and the goodness to the fear of God in man. So really, when we dedicate a period of time for fasting, it's just a reminder of what you should do on a daily basis. Today, I'm not trying to be a pastor. I wish I were really. Just I'm not that clean enough, but don't worry. We'll get there someday. We have a very special lady. She listened to us in the United States of America, where she's based. Texas, the state of Texas is the state, and I think Houston is where she's based. And she called one day, and the next thing said, "I'd like to know more about your station. What do you do?" and things like that. By the time we got talking, found that she was coming to Nigeria, and also I said, "Would you be kind enough to be on our station as our guest?" And she said, "Why not?" And so today we're going to meet Pastor Joy Fisher Afolabi. How are you? Welcome.
Very well.
Yes.
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. Now, I just want to ask you again, Pastor Joy, what exactly do you do apart from being a woman of God?
Besides being a woman of God, I'm also a special education consultant. And what that means is I service children educationally and socially who do have special needs. I support their families, and I support educators, which is teachers as well, in the area of special needs, to make sure that these children do get everything that they need to be successful in life.
Children with special needs, who are they?
Children with special needs are children who have one form of delayed development or the other, or also could have some type of as a result of chromosomal disorder or dysfunction. And for that reason, when, life is a race. So when you put two children born on the same day, medically it's expected that they cross milestones at a certain age. And then at a point when one of those two kids begins to struggle with a milestone that should go through successfully, parents start getting worried, which is expected. Pediatricians start getting worried. At that point, they examine, and then if they find out that the pit hole which is causing this child to stumble, is like a road which is bad, is so great, then that child can be classified or categorized as a child who has some special needs.
Okay. Now, Nigeria is a special country. It's a country that you have so many children with special needs, I must say. And now, I'm not saying it cynically, I'm just saying the facts.
Okay.
I've been to some homes, and I want to believe that many of these kids who really do need special help belong to some of these homes. And I don't know if you've been to any, but it looks to me as if we may not be doing enough to give these children a fair share of, value in life. What do you think?
I really haven't been around too long, so I'm not going to be very absolute. But so far, what I have seen in the last few days, because I did visit a place, was I noticed that the children were not being serviced as they ought to. I've also spoken with, yesterday I was speaking with another colleague in this area who does something like this here in Lagos. And having spoken with her, I discovered that the Nigeria generally needs to put a lot more things in place to be able to actually run special education.
Can we try to be specific in these, in defining what special education, or rather what special needs are?
Okay.
What kind of children can we?
Okay. Special education can be divided into three. And the ultimate goal, I must say this very categorically, is to have every child included with every other typical developing child. That's the goal.
So
But
same school, same environment, same opportunities?
that's the goal.
Okay.
Now, having said that, there's three categories of special need of special education. The first one is what we call the inclusion. And inclusion is when it has been detected, a child has been assessed properly, educationally, and it has been determined that the child can be included with every other typically developing child in a mainstream classroom. However, the child will need some type of support, such as educational resources, which might be different from the child sitting right next to him or her at the desk. The child might need a paraprofessional, by which I mean a teacher's aide who will be by that child to support that child while the learning process is going on within the class without being disruptive. That is the first classification. The second classification is the classification where it's determined that the child cannot have 100% inclusion, just like the first category I just explained. What that means is that the child does get pulled out for some core courses, say maybe reading, math, writing, and all that, those type of subjects. And then subjects that may not need as much intense support. That child would get the support, but would get the support in an inclusive classroom.
In
Then
an
the third-
inclusive classroom.
Yes, in an inclusive classroom, I mean a class where typically developing children are having their lessons and, and learning is going on. And a teacher who may not be certified as a special education teacher is doing the teaching, but getting support from a paraprofessional or, or a teacher who is certified in special education to let that teacher know how he or she can best support that child or two who might be in
because
that classroom.
I'm visualizing a situation where you have to carry that child along, right?
Yes.
And there might be occasional scenarios where the child may not catch up too early. Wouldn't he be a victim of some kind of taunting?
Nice. Thank you so much for following me. I can tell that you're following everything I'm saying. Yes, we might have that, but what are we going to do with this? Which takes me to another very important button that I have, which is with more awareness, taunting will be lessened. With more awareness, there will definitely be taunting. It's just like bullying in school. We can't eradicate that totally. But with more awareness, such things will be eradicated. Children would get to understand other children who are not at the same educational level as they are, or, physical or functional level as they are, and be able to accept them. It will bring acceptance. And so for that reason, yes, there will be taunting, but with education, both at home, with education in church, with education within the school, in an inclusive setting, such children will be acceptable to maybe not at 100%, but to a high extent.
Well, even if 50% would be very good to hear that.
Yes.
But I have an environment that I want to be a bit. There's a special needs school or home somewhere. I don't want to give the names because it might be a bit too sensitive.
Okay.
But it's somewhere in the mainland of Lagos. And there are a lot of people, different scenarios, different classifications of stages of needs in the children there. What I found is that they were not well treated by the managers of that place. They were not treated not as humanly possible as one should expect. And secondly, the fact that, again, this is not making I'm not trying to run away with a statement that may not be verified, but it appears to me that some of the teachers are not playing the role well enough, committedly enough to ensure that what they are given is actually given to those kids because of their helplessness. Seem to be diverting it somewhere else and not giving enough value for those children to have an environment of growth and development.
Okay.
What would you do for such a thing?
And I have observed that in the last few days.
You have?
Yes, I have. And I think the reason for that is, one, there's something we call the individual educational plan, which each child who has been identified as having a special need in terms of education has to get. An individual education plan is formulated for each child and for each subject or skill as may be required by that child. In the absence of that, we're just going to have a gathering of children who have special needs, which is what I'm saying. It all starts from parents, administrators, speech, if the child is speech impaired, therapists being there, occupational therapists being there, if the child has some functional issues. It is a meeting, we call it the IEP meeting. It is a meeting that every one of these people needs to sit down at least once every year over this child and then formulate goals and objectives, which when
for
you
the
now
particular child.
for that particular child, which is also broken down per subject or per skill. Say you want a child to learn how to button his shirt. At age 4, a child should be able to button their shirt. Okay, this child is 6 years old and this child cannot button his shirt. Okay, say in this case, you know, whether you're a girl or boy, I believe that there will be some time when you will put on a button-down shirt. At age 6, the parents start getting worried about the child's fine motor skills because he or she cannot button their shirt. That can be a goal, which is to say that we're going to reconvene after 1 year. This is one of the many things we want to ensure this child knows so that he or she can be successful. So the teacher would begin to, even in the classroom, teach the child how to button. An occupational therapist is the one who would write a goal to ensure how this child can be brought from not being able to button his shirt or her shirt and to be able to button the entire shirt from top to bottom after an agreed period of time. So what I have not heard so strongly is individual educational plans being in effect in schools, in centers where special needs are gathering. And once that is the case, I want to say it again, it seems like we're gathering kids. When we're gathering kids, we haven't exactly started.
So the purpose will be defeated.
Yes. And unfortunately, there will be a lot of time waste. And once there's time waste, you know, it gets more difficult for a child who is already challenged in, say, buttoning up their shirt. Because whatever the skills the occupational therapist determines he or she needs to teach that child as far as knowing how to button their shirt or tie their lace, their shoelace, it gets more difficult for that child. But once it started early, say for instance, in writing, you know, maybe the child doesn't even know their ABCs, but we want to formulate a goal in writing. And we say to ourselves, okay, this child has really never written from A to Z. So what are we going to do? You have to sit down and determine with the parents seated, school administrators seated, with occupational therapy, speech if the child is speaking seated, and determine where do we want to bring this child in the next 1 year. In the beginning, I did say something to make the child successful. Our desire, which should always be, how can I make this child successful to his or her God-given fullest ability? Because whether a child has special needs or not, there is success somewhere along the line. Any child, and we as parents, we as educators, we as family members, we need to look forward to seeing that child getting successful sometime in the future.
Okay, we're going to take our first break now. Marvin Sapp. One thing. Well, one thing I will desire is to have a fairly level playing field where we can have innocent human beings have fair opportunities to life, the right to the good things of life and things like that. And if by chance a child is born not as completely as a fellow child, and he should not be cast away. No. In fact, that's unacceptable in the sight of God. And apart from that, when you undertake to be responsible for the development, for the upkeep, for the caretaker of that child, you too must do it in every situation as well as possible. All right, I have Pastor Joy Fisher Afolabi as our guest in the studio today, and we're looking at children with special needs and issues of special education for such children. And I was going to ask you how community can help in this matter.
Awareness, very, very important. If the community is aware of the fact that every child is from God, and there's really no one who can boast of being able to determine anything about that child. When the child comes out, that child is from God. Then it's the first step. And then we also need to realize that when we respect one another, and I see that for the most part, if we do not respect the other human being, whether the human being has a special needs or not,
not.
it even gets harder to respect somebody who, for one reason or the other, is not meeting up to where you place the level where that person should meet. So it brings about the treatment, unfavorable treatment towards that person. So respect of our fellow human beings, whether child, adult, elderly, is very, very important. Once we begin to develop that, then looking at somebody who has special needs as a creation of God would soften our relationship with them, as opposed to looking away from them or thinking maybe their parents committed a sin and that's why they're born that way.
What's your personal experience where you're based compared to looking at the Nigerian situation?
When I got to the United States and I saw children with special needs in the store, on the road, in their cars, in amusement parks, every other place that you find a child, and I saw life as usual, people just going without turning their heads to look a second time. That was one of the culture shocks I had, because where I was coming from, that would be the next movie everybody wants to watch by the roadside. So I actually saw and I felt
So
acceptance.
the point you're making here is that there, others, they just pass by, they let everything is normal.
Everything
But
is
here,
normal.
we might just stop and look and peculiarly look and say, who is this? What is this? Is that what you think?
And maybe even make some jeers, which is why on the other time we were talking, I was saying something about this. One of my desires is to see that word imbecile, which I've heard a lot of times, even from people who are supposed to be more educated, being used on children who have no say in their state. And I found out very easily we throw that word around to describe these children, which is very derogatory. It doesn't just hurt the child who probably may not even know. It hurts the entire family. It hurts people who know the child. It hurts other people who do not even know the child but have a special needs family member. So that I can say is something that I have in my mind, and I trust in the Lord that one day soon we will be able to create more awareness where that word can be dropped or used as appropriately as the dictionary defines it to be, which is definitely not for children who have special needs.
It sounds heavy, but it's something we have to cope with. We have to come to terms with. How does one come to terms with something you're not very used to? I say not used to in the sense that we have, tacitly referred to children with special needs or children looking different from the so-called normal children. And when here it's like we're looking at cinema, like a movie. And people stop by, they will jeer at such people. How do we begin to, redefine the mindset of these people, that's the so-called normal people, that they should see the average person as equal, as not just a photographic object.
It's two places that comes to mind. The first one is the church. And one thing I really, really saw in the last few days was this church everywhere. Every single place I turned, there's church. Sometimes there were two in one location. Another place is the schools amongst the generation that is coming up. It should be made a topic for everybody to realize this is real. Why? Because even in the Bible, there was a child who was being thrown as the Lord Jesus Christ was coming. His disciples could not help this father who was standing there, and his child was being thrown to and fro. The Bible describes, different what describes the situation of that child. But when the Lord Jesus Christ came, what he did was he rebuked the demon that was oppressing this child. But what I'm trying to say here is that it's as old as Bible days. And what the Lord did was he just took it away and continued. And that was not the only instance. Once we begin to realize that children who have special needs are in our midst, life has to go on for them as perfectly as it should go on for a typically developing child, then once we begin to teach this, especially to the growing generation, both at school, at our children churches, we will, in the next few years, I believe that we'll begin to experience the awareness that will bring about acceptance amongst us all. That's one. And then another thing is there's no telling the degree at which the families will be let at ease. Because another burden I have is when I see these families, and until you do sit down, I have a center in the United States. And for the most, if not all of the children and the families I meet have one special needs child or the other. You'll be amazed when you're in discussion with them about the kind of fears they have. For tomorrow, who's going to take care of the child? What's going to be if something was to happen to them between their drive from work home? What's going to happen to this child? So when you listen to some of these things and you actually listen to the core of their hearts, you know that awareness it's become so urgent for us to be able to give them some kind of break, to be able to also cushion what they already are going through, because they're already going through a whole lot already. Sometimes I get so emotional when I start talking like this.
It's okay. I can feel it. But okay, now I feel your passion, and I look at a country that we have all opportunities. There's something for somebody somewhere. And it looks like the way you've described the American style, that in spite of everything, they still have time for the needy there, for those with special needs.
Yes.
So, is that so vividly missing here?
Oh, yes. With the capital Y.
And
it is so vividly.
Ouch to that.
Yes, it is so vividly missing. And
what should we do? Okay, go ahead.
I would explain why I said so. If I was to measure a square mile in Houston and walk a square mile, I might be able to count, depending on the population, I might be able to count how many special needs children that I saw, whether being brought to the park by their parents, for some leisure, or being brought to the store because the mom needs to shop and go home and cook.
What you're saying here is that parents pay attention to those children.
Yes.
Okay.
But do you know that besides, and do you know that since I've been here, I haven't seen any special needs child? And that is not to say that they're not there. So I think there's something wrong with that picture.
Does that mean that parents are ashamed or scared or what?
And yes. And could it be also, Mr. Irabor, that we have put them in that position? Those of us who do not.
Because our lack of ability to receive and accept.
And accept.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking as if I'm talking to you. Well, I'm talking to you live, and you are the audience. I'm just not seeing you. Let me just remind you that at some point in time, you're going to give a call, and I may be asking you, whoever calls, what you yourself would do if you see a child with a special need. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask, whether you have encountered it and how did you manage it, So these are questions that are rearing themselves in the head. Very soon, we're going to get to that level. I'm going to ask you to please start sending text messages to 33923. We have callers already. And Mrs. Afolabi is also here. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mrs. Afolabi.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I must really confess that you are really doing a lovely program, and which I must say that it is good. But aside for the disabled child or the special child, I would like to also give an advice. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to also give an advice
Yes.
that it is something that is actually happening in Nigeria, whether we see children or the special children and we don't care about them. Like when they want to cross the road, I see the school pupils, they want to cross the road and the normal Nigerian people are not bothered about them, and in order to assist them to cross the road. That is where it normally begins for. Please, I would like us to also enlighten the audience that it is good that they should be responsible for the special child and the little children also. Whenever you want to see little children crossing the road, you can assist the little children to cross the road after the school hours. When you see a child without school bag or school sandals or dirty socks, you could at least see, we can see what you can do for assist the child. That is what I have to contribute.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm a teacher,
Good.
so I do understand. I've had children with special needs, and I do some voluntary work.
Okay.
A lot, the mothers really go through a lot. The fathers are there for the financial aspect, they do help out. But when the mother pours out her heart to you, what she's going through, some just need a break. And they can't attend parties, because I understand. They go to the parties, people are busy staring. People are busy asking questions, so that the stigmatization is there. I guess it's something, orientation, churches, mosques, we have to talk to people that, look, it's circumstances beyond their control. At times, a normal child is born, maybe unfortunately the nanny at home, the child fell, did not tell the parent, the child would start developing autism or something. So these are things I just feel we need to really sit down as a nation, as a community, to address. And the most important thing, I have friends that have children with special needs, and I tell them that, look, the most important thing we need from these children is for them to be independent. Because the fear of, if anything happens to me now, who is going to take care of this child? Because their siblings still have their life.
Yes.
And it really affects marriages. Because the parents can't go on vacation. They can't take time out. It's really emotionally, psychologically, financially, spiritually draining. So people now staring, making jests, their hearts sink. At times I become a counselor just counseling them. And I know when they get back home, they still cry. They are wondering, why them? So I guess this is an opportunity for us to put our hands together and try and help. Because there are some cases they just can't find it. They don't know what causes it.
Yeah.
And it can happen to anybody.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
Indeed.
you.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes, my name is Stefania. Now I'm coming from Irabor.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Afolabi,
Yes.
thank you so much. You're doing a great job. I've just been here, listening. I'm just inspired by everything you have said. Thanks so much for the wonderful job you're doing.
To God be the glory.
Yes, I teach under this boy. You don't know whether he behaves somehow. I would have thought that he would have been in the art class, but the boy, keeps on insisting that he wants to be in the science class. So that kind of person, even though you convince him that if this what is good for you, he would still want to stick to a particular area of specialization. So how do you manage that kind of situation?
Okay, well, yes. The question he was asking, which was direct now, is that there's a child that insists on wanting to do science or the sciences, any of the sciences, I believe, and that he believes that that child should be doing something else, but his mind is strictly on sciences. It may not be so directly, relevant to this course, but in a way it appears to be, because the child appears fixated about what he wants to do. And then the second caller talked about, she's a teacher, and said there was actually a desperate need for everybody to try to understand and so on and so forth. And that was a very emotionally, spiritually draining experience and all that. And then the first caller insist that we should not just think only of these as children with special needs, that even younger children crossing the road, we're not patient. We don't even stop the car for them to pass. So he thinks there's something wrong with all of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thank God for the three callers. The first one, I kind of noticed that one of the things I said is regarding the other human being.
Yeah.
Regarding once we're able to regard the other human being, this child is not my child, but this child should not be crossing this 3-lane road all by himself or herself.
Absolutely.
And I take it upon myself to say, can I help you cross over? And I do help this child to cross over. It releases some type of compassion in me that would make it easier for me when I see a child who has special needs, to release some kind of assistance to the parents or to the child as might be needed. And I really, really thank God for the life of the lady who called, the second one, who said she does go out of her way to counsel these parents. And this is somebody testifying that they're going through a whole lot. In the United States, I had, I do still have these family friends who had a child who had Fragile X. Fragile X is a chromosomal disorder.
Fragile what?
Fragile X, the X chromosome.
Okay, X.
Fragile X.
Yes.
And this child, by the age of 10, he had brain cancer. So that was included in it. He passed away a couple of years later. But I met them within that period when he was taking chemo and then until he passed away. And they're still very good friends of mine because this child attended my center. Now, in the United States, you don't have maids who you can lock up your child with, and go out and do whatever you need to do and come back. This couple, the little boy, the late boy's mom is a judge. The late boy, yes, she's a judge of a court in Houston. The man works with I want to say Chevron. So he when the boy got to a certain age, the man was responsible for changing this child's diaper. The very first time I met them, he was taking his child to a public bathroom to change the child's diaper. A
responsibility that he had to accept.
Yes.
And do.
And he did it until the last day, the boy's last breath. Why? Because we, in that society, they have come to accept, this is what God gave to me. This child, God gave him to me. And as long as he's mine, I will do everything to support the child. So the second caller who was talking about, what the mothers are going through. I think fathers also, and I'm trusting God that many of them as are listening, should realize that this is a joint responsibility, but for both the father and the mother, to be able to make sure that this child turns out successful to the fullest of their ability. And also, let me add very strongly here that parents, you are the number one and possibly the only advocate for your special needs child.
True.
So if you let the pressures of the people cause you to stand back, that will be a disservice to your child. You need to be out there looking at people who are looking at your child and telling them clear-cut, he has Fragile X or she has Down syndrome. That's why she's doing that. And not being cowed into a corner and then letting your child and then having the society put you through things that might not be necessary if you know your way. So you are the number one and possibly the only advocate for your child.
I'm going to play this special song for this message that you've just heard from Pastor Joy Fisher Afolabi. I give myself away.
Here I am. Here I am. Here I stand. Lord, my life is in your hand.
I need you to get the message. Listen carefully to the words.
I give myself away. I give myself away so you can use me. I give myself away. I give myself away so you can. Come on, let him know. I give myself away. I give myself away so you can use me. I give myself would happen if a generation embraced this. Come on, tell them, here I am. Here I am. Here I stand. Lord, my life is in your hand. Lord, I'm longing to see your desires revealed in me. I give myself away. My life does not belong to me. Give myself away. I want to be used by you. So you can use me. I give myself away. Give myself away. So God, take my heart. Take my heart. Take my life as a living sacrifice. All my dreams, all my plans, Lord, I place them in your hands. Give myself away. Give myself away. Oh God, I give myself away. So you can use me. Oh God, give myself away.
This topic today is quite challenging to all of us, you, me, anyone listening to this program right now, because we take for granted some of those things we should not ignore. The message I was trying to read says, I have come in contact with a special needs child before, and then I'm now summarizing because some words got missing. My understanding of the message was that even that child, her brothers, her siblings were taunting her. You know, they didn't quite understand who she was or what she was, why she was the way she was. I tried to explain to him, that's to the brother, at one occasion, that it's wrong. We need to educate her, to be nice to this child. And as he's saying now, we need to be educated on this. Please, Pastor Joy, can you explain what I can do now? Because she's 14. I'm not getting much help here in Nigeria. That's what he said. I hope this message was captured properly because it's a bit disjointed. But the long and short of it is that there's a 14-year-old who needs special help. And the child is not getting the desired attention from her siblings. And this man feels a bit worried about it. What do you advise?
For parents, let me speak to parents who right now are in this category of also calling their children names or being apprehensive about their children. You are the advocate of your child. And you may be the only advocate of your child. So please step up and support your child. Because when it comes to special needs children, it is what we see a parent or how a parent is relating with their child that helps other people to relate with that child. Now, as far as the question, what can he do right now? The first thing I'm going to ask is if he notices that she does need help in some areas, because the difference between a child who has special needs and one who is developing appropriately is that the one who has special needs is doing things in a way that is So
slightly short of expectation.
Slightly short of expectation. It's like it's having two streets, and you and I standing at the edge of the road, and we're saying who's going to get there first. And my road has a lot of bumps, and your road is smooth. You know, our start off right there is unfair. So if I said to you, okay, would you hold on for me while I get some people to fill up these potholes, and then we can start off. Filling up the potholes is what this young man wants to do. Whichever way he thinks that he can be supportive in. I mean, I don't have full details of this child's disabilities, but whichever way he can support her. You know what I mean? Say it's a drooling issue. this is just hypothetical. I'm not saying he said that. I find a lot of people, they get worried or when they see a child drooling. And a child could drool for any developmental reason purposes. Drooling is just one of the many things that could happen because the child cannot control it. And if this person notices something like that, before everybody gathers, if he or she, if he can take it upon himself to help that child in that area of making sure that which will make other people come over and make that child a laughing stock is taken care of. Those are the kind of help he can give. I don't know the relationship he has to the child. I don't know if it's a female child or male child. So a lot of things I don't have a lot of answers. So that's what I can say. Fill up some holes that you notice for the child so the child does not get jeered at.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for your patience.
Good afternoon.
I saw the line ringing for a long time. Yes, how are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Lekki.
Okay, what's your name?
This is Ada.
Ada, go ahead, please.
Yes. I'm really, really very glad about this program this afternoon and the topic that is being discussed.
Thank you.
Because at the point, I was almost feeling like I was the old one out. But I think faith kept me going because I believed in what was right. But the thing is, a lot of parents have a lot of work to do. I think especially the mothers, because most mothers have left their responsibilities to some other things, and a lot of children are paying for it. Yeah, I've been in cases where I've actually stopped for children to cross, and other motorists passing by are yelling and throwing abuses at me for stopping because they're in a rush. Yeah. But it still hasn't stopped me till today because I have kids as well. Same thing in my children's school. I get into what people would say is not my business when it has to do with children. And at one point in time, someone once told me, is it because it's your children? I said, well, it wasn't my children. Actually, I was fighting for it. Somebody else's child you were dealing with. And I decided to step in. So my children are around there, but nothing was happening to them. It was some other person's child. And I think that's what most people overlook. I once told someone, I said, it's not only our kids that we're responsible for. We're responsible for other kids around us. Because when we see them and we pass by on Judgment Day, those are things that will be recorded for us. We're going to be asked by the Creator, when you saw this child, this happening to this child, what did you do? You just looked and passed. It's not my child. But they are all the community's responsibility. They are children given to us as gifts from God, and we are all answerable to God for what we've done with them, whether they are ours or some other person's own.
Thank you so much.
And especially those who are in charge of children, most times, like in schools, I see what happens most times. When in my children's school, they actually know me. There are certain things that goes on, and when my children say they ask their classmates, why don't you tell your mom or your dad? They say, well, their mom will shout at them to keep quiet and all that.
Oh, boy.
Because in my own case, they know that there is no way you will maltreat my child that I won't step out. So they already know me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Times, so that's just what I want. Most parents should wake up.
Okay.
And perform their duties as parents and not leave it or take it for granted or ignore their children when they're in distress.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Your name and place of call, please? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, madam, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. How you doing?
Thank you very much. Yeah, Chief Sony.
Yes.
You are familiar with Ikoyi, right? Roundabout, Palomar roundabout there.
Yes.
Yeah, if you come to downtown here,
downtown will be where now? Okay, yeah.
Mushi, Ajebule, Oshodi, the way our people behave here, you say, okay, these are. But in Ikoyi environment, my brother, Palomar especially, when I'm driving, about 4 or 5 cars in front of me, I will see some children want to cross road. I will expect the second car, the third car to stop for those kids. They will not stop. When I get there, I stop, and they will cross. Just this morning, I went somewhere. somewhere along Lawansi Road. I saw a girl in a bus with the 3 junior little ones. She was sitting, she laughed too. Then the other one was standing. And there's this space in that bus. I get in there. I let people inside the bus. Nobody cares. I asked again, my friend, can you people sit? He said, no. I said, don't worry, sit. I paid for them.
Oh, so if you sit, you now have to pay for the seat.
Yes, I paid for those
Wow,
children.
apparently. Oh, my God.
The other day I was going to Balende at Oshodi. You know this Nigerian Legion serviceman, old man, maybe about 80 or so.
Mm-hmm.
People were in the bus. The conductor blocked the road that Baba should not enter. Unless he pays. Nobody cares. I called the conductor. Can you allow that man to come in? How much is your fare? He said 150. Baba, come inside and sit down. We have good people. But this a donkey attitude, we have it in a lot of us. Chief Sony,
Yeah.
I want to thank your radio station. I want to thank
you,
the
sir.
kind-hearted Nigerians.
Thank you.
They helped me. I've been doing certain things. People will ask, well, where are you from? I say, Nigerian. Yeah, Nigeria, okay. We're in Nigeria. I say, Delta. Delta people don't behave like this. I say, well, I don't know. So this thing has to do with individuals, please.
Yes.
Let's be one another, brothers, keepers. I think that's what they normally say.
Yeah.
This a donkey attitude, we should stop it. Look at the killing going on in Yobe and this northern states. We down here feel, oh, no, Asa is not happening yet. No, we all should feel confined. Oh, this is the president problem. No, it's not the president problem. It's Nigerian problem. So, madam, I want to thank you very much. And for that lady, too, who speak.
Yeah.
Please, we should be our brother's keeper.
Thank you so much.
Sonny, this is Christopher Wonka. Thank you.
Yes, I know. Thank you so much. God bless you. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Taiwo from Adiniji.
Okay. Taiwo? How are you?
I'm fine. So it's a situation I'm a teacher.
You're a teacher. Okay.
Yes. There's a situation that happened to me just recently. One of my students is a new student, is in SS1. Then, after doing his first term examination, he failed. It's called something like 25/50. So his performance was totally somehow poor. But it's better than some of the students. So when his father sees his results, he came to school and made me that this student is not performing well, and it's not like doing that before, that he wants to withdraw him from school. So we encourage him not to withdraw him from school. Then I take him to other teachers. Other teachers tell him that you can see his practical is telling me that he is even more performing than other students in the school. Because he's the class card rep of my class. I'm the class teacher of his class, and he's the class rep of the class. And I noticed that he's performing than other students. So we encourage that father that he should not withdraw him because he's performing better than other students.
Yes.
So we encouraged the man, and the man now went away. So he said that the boy is going to come to school the next day. The next day, I called him on phone again. I said, I want to see the child, the boy. So the boy told me that he has agreed that he will come to school. So the next day, I went to school. I didn't see the boy. So I now called the man again. The man told me that the boy didn't want to come to school that because the boy is not ready to learn. I was imagining that what is happening. He will speak to you and try to say that you are the one that wants to withdraw this boy from school because he said that he's not performing well in school. Yeah, I said that the boy he told the boy that he should go back to school, but the boy doesn't want to come back to school. That he has decided that he's not coming to school. So we see to the man that what is happening? I won't even want to speak to Charles himself. So the next day, Charles now called me on my number and told me that particular person is not his father.
Oh.
That his father himself, that particular person that comes to our school to represent his brother.
So why did he stop him from going to school?
Yes, sir, let me just round up.
Yes.
So there's a situation around like that. Charles is not telling me that particular person has sent the money that his father is supposed to transfer into a private school. So the situation around it was the boy is not even coming to school now again now. So that's his problem. So
Wow.
that's what I wanted, because my credit is almost 50.
Yes. Thank you very much. Pastor will take a look at this particular case and we'll look at it dispassionately. Hello. Yes. I'll take your call will be the last one before we discuss the various
Okay,
calls.
this is fine.
Okay.
I'm just in Belay, but I'm at Agoma. I don't want to thank my brother Chris that called earlier.
Yes.
On the that time, if everybody to invite that kind of attitude, the world will be a better place. So I just urge everyone to copy him.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hello. Last one.
Hello.
Yes. Very quickly.
Hello.
Yes. Hello. How are you? Go ahead.
I'm fine. I'm okay. I am from Jabode.
Okay. Jabode. Yes.
Yes.
Well done.
I could understand the passion of your guest there. I'm a social worker.
Okay.
I know a particular case that you mentioned the other time about an institution
Yes.
that don't take care of their children. I think most of these institutions don't employ professionals. And I believe if you employ a professional in an institution, they will be able to understand the methodology and the technique of taking care of children with special needs. And if they are well remunerated, definitely they won't take anything meant for children home or for their personal use.
Okay.
And I believe
You don't think there's a bit of personal discipline required there?
as well. Yeah, it's part of it. It's part of it.
Okay.
A professional knows what to do at a particular time because there's a code of conduct for what you do.
Okay. I really must stop you now. Sorry. I want to give our guests a chance because we only have less than 3 minutes to go on the program. Now, you've had about 4 or 5 calls in a row.
Yes.
But the one that struck me was a teacher that was trying to recount an experience with a young boy who was not allowed to go to school. It turned out that it wasn't the father that came to talk about the boy being in school. So what do you suspect went on there?
I mean, I could just think maybe is the young boy discouraged because he didn't get good grades? Does he need help in that area?
No, it looks like Charles, the young boy, called the teacher to say, the man that spoke to you was not my father. He doesn't want me to come to school. And the teacher's story was not too complete, but my deduction was that he said the father gave him money to take him to a private school, but instead he took him to a public school. Could somebody have been playing some pranks and games there?
Possibly.
Oh, God.
I mean, possibly.
But anyway, so all the other calls, can you put them all together?
If I put them all together, I'm still saying I'm still saying, loving the next man.
Yeah.
Having compassion for the next person who needs you, whether they're physically, handicapped or mentally handicapped or whichever way. Just having compassion as a teacher, being in that class and going an extra mile for that child who is struggling, maybe in a particular subject or topic, and doing your best. And the lady also talked about the fact that yes, all these children are from God. And we do have an account to give
to God
if we do encounter a child who is in need and we're not supporting that child. So these have been good calls, and I appreciate them too.
Okay, what's your special message to Nigeria, Nigerians, and of course the need to look at the other human being?
First, message to schools. And, schools who want to do their best to help these children. Like I said, there's 3 categories. Who want to do the best they can to support children who are falling behind. Do it the right way. Make sure that you have a goal before you start so that you're able to measure the progress of this child. Every single BD step is celebratable and it should be able to be measured. My second one is to families, and I'm going to repeat that again. You are brothers, sisters, father, mother. You are an advocate. You are the advocate for your child who has needs. If you don't do it, nobody might do it for you. So come out and do not let the society put your child in a corner and put you in a corner. Come out and fight for your child. You know what your child is able to do. And make sure you develop that. You try your best to get that developed. And I kind of noticed one of the ladies talking about a lot of it's being onto the mother. So some mothers might just have to maybe cut their hours at work or cut the things they're running after if they do have a child who needs them a lot at home, so that they will be there to support that child. For the most part, what I've seen is children who are supported from childhood, who have special needs and they're supported from childhood. By the time they're grown, there's so many skills they're able to do that it's amazing. When somebody tells you that child does have a certain special need or the other. And that's simply because they got some real good home support, they got school support, and they got supports from also the society. And then also I'm going to talk to the churches. The churches need to throw their hands open, because if a family who has special needs comes in to a church, you need to realize it's because they're kind of looking for some support or solace. So let's start the awareness from there as well. Let's start the awareness with the next generation to be accepting of children who have special needs, to realize that there's something we can do to help them. If we're not able to help them, we can take them to that person who can help them.
Thank you so much for being my guest. And I know that you're airborne very soon. I wish you a safe flight. And when you do get there, keep listening to Inspiration Radio. It's www.inspirationradiong.com. Of course, you've been listening. That's why you called in the first place.
Yes.
And now here you are. How do you see our station?
I love it. Nice people. I actually did notice that every single person, from the man out there at the desk, was really nice.
Wow.
Did you tell them anything about somebody coming here today?
Nope.
Oh my goodness. For meeting them all the first time and them being so nice, it's really, really the one place to be.
Thank you. That's really good for us to hear. You guys listening out there, you heard now we are good people also. We'll continue to make you happy. We'll continue to bring you topics that we think will appeal to your conscience. That's why we're Family Radio, Inspiration Radio. Saying bye-bye.